Hi, it's MJ, and welcome to Key to the Keys, a podcast that explores the stories of local residents who have made the islands of the Florida Keys their home. Each week, I'll be sitting down with local business owners and community members who will share their personal journeys of relocating to this stunning destination and offer their unique perspective on what it truly means to live, work, and thrive here in the Florida Keys. So, whether you're considering a move, looking to start a business here in the community, or simply curious about life in this tropical paradise, my hope is that these stories will inspire you to take that bold leap of faith and live the life you want. For the first episode, I am so excited to have my dear friend Kat Newman as my very first guest here on the podcast. Kat is a well-known and sought-after wedding officiant here in the Florida Keys. Her story begins with taking a bold leap of faith and moving to this island community with only knowing one person, which inspired her to take yet another bold leap of faith and start her business, Ceremonies by Kat. For this interview, we met up at the Three Waters Resort in Isla Mirada. Newly remodeled and reconfigured, this resort had just reopened its doors when we sat down to do the interview, and it provided such a beautiful backdrop to such a beautiful conversation. And it was also the perfect location because Kat was officiating a wedding right here on the property later that day. Welcome, Kat. So excited to have you on the podcast here. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to sit down with me and share your Florida Keys story, as well as your inspiring path that led you to start a business here in the Keys in the wedding industry.
Thank you very much for having me, MJ. It is a delight and a pleasure and an honor, especially being your first guest.
Yes.
Yes.
Kicking off the podcast with Kat.
Key to the keys.
Yes, and we've known each other for quite some time. I think we first met when you first moved down. So what was that, around 2013?
Yeah. Actually, I moved in the summer of 2012.
Okay.
And then, I probably met
Shortly
you,
after.
within that period of time over at Isla Mirada Fish Company.
Yes.
Little plug for them here. And then purchased some of your art and
Yes.
saw you every now and then, talked to you every now and then. And
Yeah.
then, as is the modern way, we kind of went our separate ways. You got into your endeavors, I got into my endeavors, and here we are
crossing
in
paths again.
2024.
Yes,
crossing paths happily again.
Yes. And I'm happy for social media too, because it's kept us staying connected, and I get to see and follow your journey, which has been so fun. Watching you find your niche here in the community, as well as build a beautiful business that has just blossomed into something just so amazing for both you and the people that you serve. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, allow you to personally introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit more about who you are and your business.
Excellent, MJ. Thank you again. So, hello, everyone. My name is Kat Newman, and my business is Ceremonies by Kat, Kat with K. And I am first and foremost a wedding officiant, a professional, non-denominational wedding officiant, and I also offer other services, which we'll chat a little bit more further into the podcast about that. But I began my business the very first time I officiated a wedding was in October of 2013, just about a couple of miles from here in beautiful downtown Isla Mirada. And I never looked back after that. I was working in a real estate office at the time, a vacation rental company. My background was office administration and things like that. So I was lucky enough to have that job when I first moved here. And then, so I kind of did both in the beginning, which is, quite common for entrepreneurs. And a little bit by little bit, a lot of people ask, how did you get started? How did you build your client base? And, I guess it's similar in all businesses, but particularly in the wedding business, yes, it's referrals from friends and family who are getting married themselves or may know people who are getting married. But specifically in this very condensed market here in the Upper Keys, which is kind of, for those who don't know, it's Key Largo, Tavernier, Isla Mirada primarily is considered the Upper Keys. It's getting to know the other wedding vendors, planners, photographers, DJs, etc., and also becoming a preferred vendor at the venues, such as the one here where we're sitting, the newly renovated Three Waters Postcard Inn. So, as a matter of fact, I am performing a wedding here later this afternoon. I have the pleasure, so that we figured this would be a great spot for the podcast. So, little bit by little bit, you get known, and you know they say timing is everything. Well, in your real estate business, it's location, location. But in my case, it was timing, timing, timing. I just happened into being an officiant. When somebody suggested that I do this kind of work, I remember saying, "A wedding who? A wedding what? Officiant?" I knew what the word meant, but I didn't know it was a thing. I didn't know it was a profession. And fortunately, I really had skills at age 52. I had acquired those life skills. You don't have to go to college to become an officiant. But at any rate, so I kind of just wove it all together. And then after about a year or so, I formally formed my business and the all important website and social media. And then I let go of the other job and began pursuing doing weddings full time. And so that was in 2013, and here we are in 2024. And I'm happy to say I've married somewhere around 1,400 happy couples from about 17 countries last time I checked. And I thought it was 48 states. It might be 49 states. I believe I have not had the pleasure of marrying anybody from Wyoming. So if you're out there watching this podcast and you live in Wyoming, come.
When it comes, she will marry you here in the beautiful Florida Keys.
Yes, and I also do marry people throughout the state of Florida as well. I'm a Florida notary, and so that's sort of the broad strokes of what I do. And then also there's other celebrations of life and blessings, and being an MC at parties and events and things like that. So I've sort of branched out, and I just love it. It feeds my soul, feeds my heart. And as everybody knows, my hashtag at this point, hashtag scatterjoy.
Yes. Yeah, and you get to be a part of their beautiful story here, not just their wedding story, but their Florida Keys story. Yes. Everybody has a very memorable, moments in the Keys. And so people are getting married, I think they've had already memories that have brought them here to get married, and so you've just added, you get to add and be a part of that journey for them. And I'd love to hear more about your journey to the Florida Keys and how you moved here.
Absolutely.
And where you moved from and why you chose the Florida Keys back in summer of 2012 to start a life here.
Thank you very much. So as they say, the story began, if you can't tell from my accent, I'm a native New Yorker. Most people have no trouble with that one. I moved to the west coast of Florida in 2004, and then lived there for a while. And then in 2012, life circumstances changed for me. It was the end of a marriage and the beginning of the next chapter of my life. And the job I was working at the time where I lived was not fulfilling. So I kind of said to myself, let's just open up our horizons. I did not pick the Keys. The Keys kind of picked me, as they often do. And I came down to visit someone and liked it and made arrangements to go back, quit my job, pack up my belongings and my 2 cats at the time and my little red Mustang that I was driving at the time. Real kind of, for those of you who remember the Mary Tyler Moore Show, I was kind of like the Mary Tyler Moore Show, where you're going to make it on your own and that kind of thing. And came cross state, and very south to an area I really didn't know. I had been here, once on vacation. So that was sort of the first chapter of the second of the coming to the Keys story.
What was that timeline between the first time you came down to when you actually moved down? Like how many?
Not very long.
Yeah,
I didn't mess around. Yeah,
you took that leap. You're like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's a great question, MJ. I believe I came in, I want to say March, April. Okay. So sort of, end of winter, beginning of spring. It wasn't too beastly hot yet, and of course fell in love with the sunsets fell in love. We did, we went down to Key West for one day, but basically, got to know this area of the Upper Keys and just kind of chilled and everything. And within a week or two of returning back to where I lived, I was looking for apartments, and getting my affairs in order. So by July, and actually it probably would have been sooner, but those of you who know the Keys know that housing, is one of our number one challenges here, because there's just they're little islands, and there's not as many places to live. So ultimately found a place, came down, and here I am. I mean, I moved several times while I lived in the Keys, and while I don't live here full time anymore, clearly I'm here probably 40% of the time, particularly on the weekends, because although we do weddings all days of the week, we do brunches, but primarily sunset, so late afternoon, early evening, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just wedding after wedding after wedding after wedding, and we're all buzzing about our weddings on social media, and so that story, that's how I got here, and then from there, the person I was in a relationship with at the time suggested that I become an officiant, as I mentioned, and so just started building it. But we're more than what we do for a living. So I also had, as we've chatted about before, you know Kat Newman, the person, getting to know the community. I literally did not know a soul other than my roommate, and so I'm an outgoing person by nature, but still, it's overwhelming. It's intimidating. There's a lot to get used to. Changing the address and all that official stuff, but then sort of just getting into the community. And interestingly enough, I'm not what you would call a water person. However, I love the beach and the water and the vibe just as much as anybody else. But I don't fish, I don't snorkel, I haven't snorkeled yet. I don't do those kinds of things. But I am very artsy. So I got involved in a local community theater group. They just happened to be holding auditions, and I happened to read it in the Coconut Telegraph, local newspaper here. And Coconut Telegraph is a term, goes back like years and years, about how news spreads through the islands. We call Coconut Telegraph. So, and I wound up meeting like a wonderful little community of people at this community theater. We would rehearse and perform at the Lions Club. So real small town neighborhood kind of thing. And I think sometimes, when we're in a resort area, we forget, whenever we travel to other resort areas, we forget that people live there. People go food shopping there. Their kids go to school. So I started to kind of learn that side of life, because it can be very tempting to live in paradise and want to go out to dinner and live music every night, and maybe want to have cocktails and all, and just kind of want to play. So you really have to have that much more discipline. So you've got that combination. But I loved it. I loved what I saw. I loved the people that I was meeting, and then a large percentage of the friends that I've made over the 12 years are people who are in the wedding business, because of the crazy hours and crazy days and the common bonds that we have. And we have little vendor events during the year. People have babies, and people, have different things going on in their lives, and we follow each other. So, that it really was a leap of faith. I wanted to remember to use that expression, because you know, I know for a fact that a lot of my family was like, oh God, what is she up to now? Although it wasn't something that I had done a lot in my life. I had a pretty traditional life for many years, same job, same house for a really long time. But now it just started. And, one thing led to another. And, we use the word courage. And you take that first leap of faith, and it makes some of the other leaps of faith a little bit easier. You get more confidence in yourself. Um, so here I am. I guess that's the story. And I have no intention of leaving this area. God's been really good to me, and this is my family. We've got Friendsgiving come up. People come from all over, and you're right. Everybody has a story.
Yes, and
As,
a
yeah.
lot of us don't have, like you said, our family's not here. A lot of us have moved away from our hometowns, and away from, not that we're running away, but life was calling us elsewhere. And so we do have a lot of friendsgivings, like we have
Yes.
friends Christmases. Like you really build a bond with some people here to celebrate those holidays and bigger moments, because maybe you can't go back home or your family can't come here. So
It's incredible.
you
It's
build
powerful.
a community outside your intermediate, family group.
And
So
also, there are, like so many other areas, while there is tremendous wealth in, in parts of the Keys, and there is also, tremendous struggle for a lot of people just by nature, not just because of sometimes it's their life circumstances, but also because this place is wild. Not as wild as I'm sure it used to be, before air conditioning and before they sprayed for mosquitoes and things like that. But the Keys still attracts people that I want to say sometimes, they can be rule breakers, or they can be people who don't want a lot of structure, or don't necessarily have a little direction in life. Maybe they're a little lost. Maybe they're floating around, or maybe they're taking an intentional break. So you sort of have both ends of the spectrum. And I know we've talked about this too, how you can be, somebody's cheering over here.
You're
I don't know if
having
you
a
can hear that.
party over
Yeah,
here.
woohoo! Might be my wedding party getting ready. Um, you know, I like to say that, the Keys can be like the great equalizer, because you can have somebody that's, living in a tent, or, a little camper or something,
Or a sailboat.
standing online, or having a conversation, or sharing a drink with somebody that lives in one of, the beautiful oceanfront mansions that are here. And they're, in flip-flops and baseball caps, and, drinking the same beer, and just talking about fishing or whatever. So it really can be the great equalizer, a place like this.
It brings people from all walks of life, from all different parts of the world, all different stories, and kind of blend together down here, because, like you said, everyone is like, it's super casual. No one's really dressed up, no matter how much money you have. Like, you just want to be like low key. We have a lot of famous people that come here, and you could walk right by them and probably not even know who they are, because they're in sun hats, they're in glasses, and they're just dressed down just like anybody else, just like, just a regular
and that's
Joe.
their intention, right?
And they sit down the bar just like everybody else, or they sit amongst the tables. Like, that's what they want. That's the vibe of the Keys. It's no worries, no shoes, no shirt, no problems.
No problem. It's 5 o'clock somewhere.
Everybody, like I said, everybody from every walk of life comes here to just maybe escape reality, for a bit. And
I'm sure it has a lot to do with, because we can call it paradise.
Yeah.
Paradise, no passport required.
We are a little removed.
That's copyrighted or not. But.
We are a little removed down here from, the hustle and bustle of the mainland, of the main part of the country, and people call this the Caribbean. Like you said, you don't need
a passport required.
No passport required to.
Fabulous, the fabulous Florida Keys, and in the weddings, I'll often say the fabulously romantic Florida Keys, because along with that wildness, along with that freedom, is very romantic.
Yes.
And romantic can be. It doesn't necessarily mean romantic love between two people. I mean, you can be here by yourself and just feel your heart. Just feel in touch with nature, and feel like the full moons here, the sunrises here. There's less ambient light, and I don't think there's any buildings over 5 stories anywhere in the Keys. I think that's and there's very few of those anyway. I don't even know if I know of any.
No,
there might be a couple that are 3 or 4 stories, but there's that sense of that. And of course, we all know that bloodline. I mean, that really kind of put the Keys on the map. I mean, that was not too long after I came here, so I can't claim to be like the folks that have lived here for a long time, or the folks born here, conks, who had already seen such tremendous growth. But I can attest to those surges that happened after Bloodline came out. And, it became a hobby here, for those of us, we'd have watch parties, and we would, I knew people who were extras, and every time we saw them, yes, we would do a shot. uh, or we would call out, oh, that's such and such a bar, that's such and such a, backdrop. So it really did put us on the map. But yet, tying into what you just said, MJ, we had Sissy Spacek in our midst, one of the most famous stars ever. I know I can't think of the names, but quite a few other, obviously some very other famous people that were in that. Um, and again, you could have been in. I could have been standing next to Sissy Spacek buying lipstick at CVS or something. A huge attraction to this area. It's off camera right now, but beyond us in the ocean is the sandbar. That's strictly the sandbar. I actually did a wedding there once. We stood in the water.
Oh, how cool.
That was cool. That was cool. So I'm kind of getting back to, most of my weddings are beach weddings, but there's so many little niches in the Keys and homes that you wouldn't see from the highway.
Yes.
You kind of have to know they're there.
I love how the homes kind of just immerse into the landscaping. I mean, they become one with the landscape, and it's so
Good
pretty.
Point.
Yeah.
The sea grapes. And,
so there's some beautiful garden weddings that I've seen. So they're not waterfront, but oh my gosh, the lush tropical gardens, poolside. I mean, there's so many options.
Very refreshing.
Or get on a boat, jump in the water, and
that was so much fun. And then he picked her up, the groom picked the bride up after the vows. I kind of stepped to the side, and very often they'll do that dip, after the kiss at waterside or walking down the aisle. But he literally picked her up and kind of gently tossed her in the water. Who was only
I'm sure that made for some great photographs.
Yes, our friend Julie took, who's a local photographer. She took fabulous pictures.
Yeah.
But we've done quite a few also out at the Alligator Lighthouse.
Oh, beautiful.
Greg Poland very often will take us out on the boat if the couple wants to be married. So, local charter captains, everybody gets involved in weddings somehow.
Yeah.
Whether you're baking cookies at home that are being used in the wedding, or whether you are renting a property where they're either going to have the wedding or the guests are going to stay. I mean, I don't think there's too many professions here that don't somehow get involved.
I don't think people realize just how much it benefits so many different local businesses to have weddings down here, because we don't have a lot of big box stores. We're especially the Upper Keys and especially Island Marana, we're known for the ma and pa stores, the small businesses, the entrepreneurs, and so it makes, to have the constant weddings happening, it keeps these small businesses alive, and it keeps our community thriving, and because everything is literally from a small business, pretty much.
That's a really, really important point that you brought up there.
Yeah. So we really rely on, even though our islands get overwhelmed in the busy season, we are very grateful and thankful because we couldn't thrive and continue to live here full time, because it's not cheap, but that's why we live here, because it's beautiful and we are willing to pay the extra, whatever we need to do to live here. But
it's so true, and we have really just basically 2 seasons. 2.5 seasons, maybe.
So we are grateful for that, and then in the slow season we can kind of breathe for a few months.
The restaurants close down, people go to visit family and friends, we go on our own vacations, July into September, and now here it is, Veterans Day weekend, which is sort of the unofficial opening. I mean, this is always a big wedding season, again, because any long weekend, but it also is, I guess, probably with the weather shifting, on one of your podcasts, you'll interview a fisherman and he'll give you all the official rundown. But, I know there's always a season for every kind of fishing, and crabbing and lobstering and things like that. But it really, for weddings, it is, because this, the temperature's dropping now. So, we're into our happy place now. We're all kind of coming back to life.
Yes, the breeze feels good,
Yeah.
but it is strong.
Sorry for my hair blowing all over the place, but that's.
But I'd much rather have this than nothing and just sweat dripping down our face.
Yes.
Which, if we would have done this even a month ago, maybe we would have had that.
So true, so true. Or we could be sitting here bundled up in parkas.
Yes.
I'm not going to hold them up, but I have no shoes on my feet right now. Take my word for it. And it's delightful because I am a bit of a hippie, and you know that word never seems to kind of go out of style. You know, hippies are always in tie dye. You know, you can see tie dye everywhere in the Keys, and
Yes.
and just see. But yeah, with the and as you mentioned, I know you have some other future guests that you know. Obviously, you're focusing on you know, sharing people's stories and how they're tied into opening their businesses. There are some businesses here that have been here for a very long time and might be family legacies, and then there's others that are quite new and you know kind of in between like mine. You know, a lot of storefronts, we don't have that little downtown village type uh, uh, um, town center type feel, so it's even more important that we support the businesses that kind of line the highway, or there's some little plazas and clusters of stores where you can park and get out and walk a little bit. But that's another unique quality, and not so much in Key West, but up here. So it's very important that we share with our visitors, whether they just you know be visitors from the mainland or people from you know outside the country, to let them know, oh, here's a cool little place for coffee. Here's a cool little place to get, you know, homemade or handmade gifts. You know, there's a few places. Everybody wants to know where to go for key lime. You know, everybody wants to know where to go for the freshest fish. Where will they cook my catch? You know, where can I go for trivia night? So you got to keep up. I think it's you know we have a responsibility, like you said. We're so grateful to tourism because it is you know TNT is number one here, but we have a responsibility to our visitors.
Yes. To
keep them safe.
Well, to keep the community, to keep our environment, and just to
environment very important.
Well, and then to teach everybody about our environment and what I mean. Without our waters, there'd be no reason to come to the Keys because we don't have a lot of land. We don't have a lot of things going on. But
no, we don't.
We have. I mean, we have an artist community, but that again is involved because of the water and the tropical scenery, and I mean every art you're gonna see ocean art. I mean
inspiration everywhere.
From the sunsets on the water and the fish
turtles,
under the sea,
the coral reef. I mean, during lobster season, there's always a lot of public service going out about you know how to be respectful of the coral reef. It's a living, breathing environment, and a lot of people may not know that when they come here. And you know, FWC, everybody, you see how hard everybody works to find that balance of you know allowing people to enjoy, but also keeping the diversity of creation as well as the livelihood for the people that do the fishing and lobstering for a living. And so that's a topic that's you know talked about a lot on our local radio programs, in our articles, in our magazines, and that is one thing I did learn a lot about, because you've got to learn about where you live.
Yes.
You know, like I wouldn't know anything about living on a mountaintop either. So you know, if I ever do move somewhere or get a second home that's you know in the mountains somewhere, guess what? I'll have to do that all over again. I won't be an expert on that area. I will have to learn that, and I would you know kind of want to lean on the locals. But it's so great when people, like you said, you know, we have few kind of chain establishments here, and it's a fact of life. You kind of have to have them. But as far as the restaurants go,
no, yeah, we
they're
don't.
Mom and pops.
Oh yeah,
and you know,
yeah. There's no Olive Garden or Red Lobster or Chili's.
Could you imagine a Red Lobster in the Florida Keys? That would be kind of. Well, they call that like an oxymoron or something. You know, it would make no sense.
But I mean, there's no chains like
that.
No.
And, you know, the closest thing might be, you know, some of the the finer dining in the hotels, because hotels by nature are
Right,
corporate,
right,
but
yeah.
we have that. But it's nice to have those options. We've got white tablecloth restaurants, and then we have restaurants where you just kind of sit down outside,
Yeah.
and they're dog friendly, and the boats are pulling up, and everybody's in their shorts and
Yeah.
bathing suits. So it's the full end of the spectrum. And then all these wonderful businesses, like now we've got distilleries and beer gardens and things like that. None of that was here
10 years
when,
ago.
no,
I've really
no.
seen a boom, and I think it's just a turnover in generation.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed. When I first moved down, it was mainly a retirement community, and it still is, but there's a new wave of, I would say, the older millennials.
Yeah. The 30 somethings,
30s and
into
40s.
40s. Yeah.
And, they're seeing what people are wanting now and making businesses for what people are wanting, because it's a new generation coming down
That's a good point.
too. And so I see that kind of turnover, and change is always going to happen. That's one thing in life is and you have to just go with the flow. But at the same time, the main factor is we cannot change our environment. We have to protect it and keep it. And that's the one thing you have to be conscious of when we build more and when we add more. And the Keys are so very good at that, protecting our ecosystem on land and the ecosystem in the water. So
absolutely. And you see it too, even at the weddings. It's been quite some time since they stopped, using lids and straws, the cups and the to-go. People are more conscious, of kind of a little plug here. You talk about the reduce, reuse, recycle, and now it's refuse too. And I think there's a fifth one now. I forget the fifth one, but it refuse. Like don't take that bag. Use a tote bag. And when you're so close to the earth and so close to the water, you see it. We walk along the beach. If we see a cable tie or a little piece of fishing wire or something that's blown up on the beach, I can't tell you how many times I've come home from a wedding and my little tote bag has all little things that I might have picked up on the beach. And it's not that people are necessarily littering. The wind blows it in, the tide brings it in.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of litter here. I think there's that respect.
Consciousness. Yeah.
Nothing against spring break, but this is not, spring break in terms of woohoo, like Party City. This is quieter. Like I always like to say that people ask me, guests will ask me, where can we go after the wedding? Like, the after party. And I'm like, Key West, but here there's, there's maybe 2 or 3 places that you would find that in season on the weekends, are going to be open after 10 o'clock. We've got very strict noise ordinances. That's why we do start our weddings earlier. This time of year, we're starting them at 4. So between wanting to get those sunset pictures and having a strict noise ordinance to respect the people that are here vacationing, the working people that have to get up, and the fishermen and fisherwomen who get up, anglers, I should say. That's gender neutral, anglers. They're gonna get up at 3, 4 in the morning. They're crazy, but and anglers are at the heart of this.
They will always be at the heart of this.
Yeah.
The
big white pickup trucks are everywhere for the towing the boats or black pickup trucks.
That was one thing I had to get used to, because before living here, I was living in Fort Lauderdale for a few years, and I mean, that city doesn't sleep, just like Miami. I mean, you could just find someplace open all the time, and there's something going on. And coming down here at 20, what was I, 23, 24?
Oh my
I wasn't a big partier. I had my fun up there. What I was coming down here for was the artist scene and the oneness with nature. So I wasn't really looking for the nightlife, but I was so shocked at how little nightlife there was. But you're right, because people's their hobbies and what they're interested in, what they come here to do, does not require, it's not a nighttime thing.
No.
And you are drained and wiped out spending just half the day on the water. I mean, you don't even think about going out. You're ready to
good point.
pass out at 5 o'clock.
And if you've got kids with you, and maybe you took them down to Marathon to the Turtle Hospital, or maybe you took them over here to Theater of the Seas, or you swam with the dolphins, and they kept you moving. And maybe when you got back to wherever you're staying, you all laid around the pool. But again, I don't think people realize that there's a whole host of things to do here.
Yeah.
Again, they're not clustered together in one place, so you do have to know your
Travel.
itinerary and do your planning. And we've got all these great Facebook groups like Visit the Florida Keys and stuff that, we all monitor them. And also, good for small businesses. It's somebody asks, well, where can I go to get, locally hand painted gifts? I'm going to tag MJ with her beautiful creations, and I'm also encouraging my wedding couples. If they ask me, what kind of local gifts and favors and things they can buy. Again, more sustainable. You're reusing stuff and all that good stuff, and we see that. There's a gallery here that does nothing but make frames out of the recycled lobster traps, and they even have those
the tags.
Retired little tags on them. So I think that was like the first thing I bought when I came here. Like you said, I bought somebody's painting of a sunset, and then I had it framed in a lobster trap frame. So, and you can still get your T-shirts and your knickknacks and stuff too, but they're, so, and I'm sure that some of these people will be on your future, your future podcasts.
Lots of creatives coming up.
Yeah, because the olive oil place, we have a mermaid shop. I mean, there's a lot of cool places.
Yes.
So,
and it's going back to just like you said, word of mouth and other businesses telling people about the other businesses down the road. Because, like you said, it's not like a town square where you can just get out and go to all the shops and then you're done. It's driving one road, and then they all line the road. So, collaboration over, competition. Like,
I like that. That's a great slogan.
Not everybody's on board with that, but most people I feel like are on board with that because, like I said, you have to be down here. It's a small town, and collaboration will get you a lot further than competition. Trying to be competing, and I don't know if you found that more collaboration than competitiveness in the wedding industry and vendors.
We talk about that a lot. Yeah,
it sounds like you have a tight knit group.
We do. As a matter of fact, one of the more popular planners here, actually, she and her team plan an activity. A couple of times a year we get together for like from 5 to 7 for a little cocktail hour in different venues. We'll sponsor it, and different wedding vendors will volunteer their time and services and stuff to kind of put this party together, and it's great. We wear name badges because there's always new people coming through, but for the most part, it really is oh my God, and you actually get to have an uninterrupted conversation with somebody because, as an officiant, I get to the wedding. These people have been there all day. The planners, the floral designers, the decorators, the people doing the lighting and the music. God bless them. They're there sometimes from 10, 11 in the morning for a 4 or 5 o'clock wedding. I get there, I want to go hug them, but they're like, don't hug me, we're all sweaty, and they're running and they're busy. And as an officiant, I get there maybe an hour before the wedding. I do the wedding. And sometimes, as I am this evening, I am blessed that the family invited me to stay, for dinner. So I sometimes get to do that, and it's just wonderful. So then but I have to be mindful. My job is finished when I pronounce the couple married for the most part, but the rest of the team is still working. And but to kind of address your point about collaboration over competition, there's a tremendous amount of competition in certain areas of the wedding business. The two areas I think that are the most competitive would be planners and photographers. There's just so many, and there's so many wonderful ones.
There are, I know.
Oh my gosh. And
I would think it'd be so hard to choose.
It is so hard to choose. And, if people ask me to recommend a photographer, I will usually start by saying, well, do you have a short list? And then if they give me 3 or 4 names, then I kind of, what I try to do is get a sense of, well, what style are you looking for?
Well, and everybody,
other than price point, I can kind of help them, guide them, but so many photographers. As a matter of fact, I'm just as a side note, I'm working on finalizing my preferred vendor page for my website.
Very nice.
And I think I'm going to run out of room listing so many vendors. It doesn't mean the ones you don't list, or, you don't love them. So we never know. One of the, we all message, like just last night, I messaged a DJ that I'm working with in December because I saw he was on the list of who I'm going to be working with. And we send each other text message, we're working together again. So, but particularly within officiants, officiants is, kind of a different special category because obviously so many people will choose a clergy, a priest or a rabbi or a pastor or, whatever. And then sometimes they pick friends and family. So it is sort of less, it's a different kind of competition, it's a softer, gentler kind of, we still make a living and I still need to market and I still need to get jobs to make a living, but particularly for those people who may be doing it as a sideline. And again, it's the same way all around the country now, but I think it probably was more common here in the Keys earlier on that everybody does at least two things in the Keys.
Yes.
If you are employed, and even those people who are retired, they're going to pick up and get involved in something here.
Yeah, and I also think, well, one, because to make ends meet, a lot of us have to have multiple jobs. Also because the seasons change. So a lot of people have, in the high season, they have their high season job, and then the low season, they have their low season job, and then sometimes they intermix. But also, like, I'm a very multi-passionate person. Like, I can't just do one thing. And I feel like because there is a lot of creatives down here and a lot of people, I think, similar, multi-passionate, that we love having two different ways of bringing in income because, sometimes this one,
it feeds different parts of you.
Different parts of our soul. And
it's a good point. And I mean, look who we have. Look, Weiland, one of the world's most famous artists. And, we pass by his murals on the sides of stores and things like that. And there was just something on Facebook about, a rescued loggerhead turtle. And he, I think, created a painting and, donates and gives so much. Pasta Pantoliano. We have, world renowned. We have Dave Fader, world renowned musician. And he donates so much time and energy to local scholarships, and they host events here at Founders Park that raise funds for our children and our local community groups. So arts, very tied in. You can't not be inspired. And may he rest in peace, Jimmy Buffett. I mean, nobody, I don't think anybody's more associated with the Florida Keys, particularly Key West, than Jimmy was. So that it's just all so beautifully tied in. So I don't know where I was going with that one, but we're just having so much fun talking. We're just free flowing here.
Just a friendly conversation. Like you said, that's why I'm here. The Florida Keys has just taught me to go with the flow in life.
Yeah.
To not be so rigid, not to be like everything has to be just like this. You know, you move. I always tell people, like, your day, your life, whether you like it or not, but when you live here, just so close to nature, because we're on such small pieces of land, your world kind of revolves around the sun, the moon, the tides, the wind. I mean,
is it going to rain?
Everything's outdoors. Yeah. Almost everything is outdoors. Yeah. A lot of our restaurants, most of the activities. So yeah, you're always looking at, what's the temperature? What's the
radar
wind doing?
We're always watching that radar when the wedding's starting.
Yeah. So that, again, you're just having to trust Mother Nature and kind of go with her plan.
I love that.
It's like,
because at the end of the day,
with weddings,
she wins.
Especially,
she always wins, Mother Nature.
Yeah, with weddings, I'm sure that can be challenging.
Yes.
And
yes,
you have to think on your feet. But I know a lot of planners, I'm sure, and a lot of these resorts will always have that second go-to plan B of, like, if it's raining or like really windy. Like you said, you had a wedding, like it was really windy, like today, and they were opted for, instead of
inside
beachfront, the lobby, but they had the beautiful scenery still. So
and of course, tent, you have to have that sort of lined up in some places. Like here where we're at here at Three Waters, they have a tiki where they normally serve dinner. The ceremony is next door on the beach. So the rule of thumb is always, like, gosh, at least get through the ceremony if rain's coming. And of course, there's a timeline, so sometimes we can stall. But what's interesting is that I have seen so many times, and again, I have no pipeline to the creator, but I have no control over the weather, obviously. But in all of those weddings that I have done, again, since 90 to 95% of them are, right before sunset, I can't tell you how many times it looks like it's going to rain. It looks like it's going to rain. It's cloudy. Maybe it mists or spits a little bit during the ceremony. And no sooner they've been pronounced married and the cocktail hour starts, there's that break in the clouds, and that those pinks and purples and oranges. And to speak to your point about everything being small, actually, where we're sitting right now is at a very narrow point on one of the islands. We're on Winley Key here.
Pretty much see the bay and see the ocean.
Yeah. So even if you're oceanside, you get the sunset. You get the
The
sunset. Everywhere.
colors. No matter which side of.
These open waters. So so we do sometimes have to delay or rush. And I have been known sometimes mid ceremony, I might not feel the rain, but I'll see the planner will kind of wave at me and go like this to kind of. So the most important thing, obviously, as an officiant, is to get their vows and to get the pronouncement done. So I don't think I've ever had to just end the wedding. We just we make it happen and then we run. So yes, everything is about that. And sometimes they do have their dinners inside, again, at the hotels. They might come into a ballroom or a banquet room. Or if they're doing it at one of the estates, there might be an overhang or something, but not always. Not always. So sometimes, we just have those big clear umbrellas that we can hold over the guests, and we all jump in with towels and do what we need to do. So definite collaboration, because if there's anything that brings us all together as humans, is the weather.
Yes.
And good, bad, or otherwise.
And I always say, though, because there's not much land, I feel like the rain doesn't hang around a lot.
It's unusual.
I mean, there's certain times of the year where we'll just get a full day of rain, but it's very rare.
January, kind of sometimes.
And in our summer season, we'll get, but
true.
And you can always expect a shower in the afternoon in the summer. But I always tell people, give it 5 minutes.
Set your watch.
Give it 5 minutes. Like it could be, it could rain for literally 5 minutes and be over with. And in the sky, if it's at sunset hour, oh my gosh, I feel like rain clouds bring in the most stunning because of all that moisture. I always, when I worked on the Bayside at the restaurant, and every sunset people are like, oh no, there's clouds. I'm like, just wait. I promise you it's gonna just be stunning. And sure enough, I mean, sky just
that's prime sunsets over there, and that row of restaurants there and homes. I mean, I love to watch the photographers go nuts. I can see them taking pictures, and then they go and they show the couple in the viewfinder, and you can see them like they're just like we have what I call there's some happy clouds here over the ocean right now, but it's brilliant sunshine and this steady breeze, as you can tell. But those sunsets. So there you are, and with the full moon, you feel that vibration, you feel that that sensitivity, and that is such a precious thing to protect.
Have you had a couple base their wedding around a full moon?
Very good question. Only once, when they were still doing them over at Pierre's.
Oh, for the party. Okay.
Yeah. And she happened to be expecting. She was pregnant. It's coming back to me now. It was just the two of them. I think they had a few guests. And it was fun. It was different. It was great. I've only done a handful of weddings after sunset, and the one thing that was a challenge was that they have the Junkanoo bands and the different music going on and the people and the fireworks, but that's when they wanted to do it. They wanted to do it like at the height of that. Okay. We were kind of standing over water's edge, and there's people and all. So
they wanted that vibe.
They wanted that vibe. So who am I? Customers, right? And I loved it. And again, it's another page from my book of perks, job perks. It's so many job perks. I could have spent the whole time just making a list of
Yeah.
why I like to do what I do, and so that was the only time. Then there was one or two other times that I did do like an evening wedding. It wasn't here in the Keys, and it was inside a hotel, and they had like a skylight so we could the moonlight would
Oh,
come in.
okay.
They did
Oh,
it
pretty.
around that, and then all the flowers were white. It was a white on white wedding because
Yeah.
they wanted to get that glow
Oh,
of the
beautiful.
moonlight and the candles and everything. So I wish that we had the opportunity to do more. Maybe I should blog about it, or maybe when
Because,
people
like you
watch
said,
this.
when I've never seen the moon so beautiful until I moved down here, watching it rise out of the ocean is just stunning.
I lived on
Um,
the ocean side for a year
and
and
you
a
can
half.
just
Yeah.
like the sun, you can watch it rise and set all on the same day. Like we said, the
Yep.
ocean's right here, the bay's right here. You can just walk across the street, but you can also see the moon rise and set. I mean, where else?
I never paid that much attention. We all love full moons, but when I lived in other parts
right?
of the country, I never paid attention to moon
We
rise.
celebrate it. Like Lorelei, the
Oh,
Lorelei
yeah.
restaurant in Island Mirada, they have a sunset celebration every single night.
Yeah. They some places they blow the conch
I think they
shell.
blow the conch shell there.
They
still,
send
do
the little boat out.
Yeah.
People put their messages in and they burn them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And even like you said, the full moon party. So that's the one late night party.
Yes,
so
yes,
if you
once
want
a month.
If you want a fun party, late night party, plan it around the full moon, because up and down the Keys they'll have full moon parties. So.
And it is, the big one is it's great. It really is a great party. They used to, they would put the light sticks in the drinks. So, they tied everything around, and there was always like a police presence to direct traffic because, again, one road in, one road out. You throw in
Parking's
a couple of
limited, so everybody's parking on either side.
Yeah. And you see those blue lights and okay, they're safety first. They're our awesome Monroe County sheriffs are just, they're on the spot, and they have a lot of challenges too. But yeah, so I don't know, there's probably somebody in the travel and tourism department that made up a slogan, come for the weather, stay for the people, or, come for the weather, stay for, the art, the fill in the blank. But it is romantic in both like I said, traditional romantic, but that romance of, I always say a place like this, and any other island areas like Long Island where I grew up, or like the Outer Banks in North Carolina, or any of the other island communities, Fire Island. They're pirates. They were rum runners. They were people, like you said, escaping, fleeing, and not always nice fleeing and nice escaping like we have here. So I think about that and I go, piracy. I mean, piracy is, people that are kind of basically doing things they shouldn't be doing, and, wanting to go below the radar. So what better place, especially before the bridges were built, you really could hide. And it's my understanding, there's a connection with Humphrey Bogart, that famous movie Key Largo. A few years back, I watched. They did a viewing of it at the Key Largo Fisheries. They had a big outdoor screen.
Oh, neat.
And his son, it was Stephen Bogart, I believe.
Oh, did he come?
And he came and spoke after the movie.
So cool.
Yeah, and at the time I was living like 2 blocks away, so it was really cool to be watching Key Largo, black and white, on the big screen, and typical, like you said, small town. They had those little white chairs for us, but people brought their blankets and their snacks and drinks and stuff. And then he did do a little talk afterwards. They were kind of had like a little sort of a quasi film festival that I think they were promoting for a few years, because we had the African Queen, the actual African Queen from the movie, which made me crazy when I first moved here, because I'm Katharine Hepburn. But so it's my understanding that back then a lot of the Hollywood stars would come here.
Oh yes, yeah.
By boat to escape the paparazzi and whatever.
They could breathe.
Lucy and Desi, I heard, would come down, because Miami, they would hang out in Miami, and then come here. And of course, with Cuba travel, and at different times in history, being able to also get in and out of Cuba. So it was just a perfect place. I'm not saying they were pirates, but they were escaping.
Yeah.
reality. And
Yeah.
but there were actual real pirates here too.
Yeah.
And we talk about square grouper. A lot of people
There's a
know
lot of lingo that
yeah. Oh
that
my
you'll
God.
learn when you move down here, whether you like it or not. You'll.
Yeah, it's not like Spanglish. It's
It's a
Keysglish.
keys.
Maybe we just made up a word.
Yeah.
And I
You
did.
learn.
I needed to
You
learn.
learn the terminology.
I
Yeah.
needed to learn. I didn't know what a davit was. The boat lifts and spalling. I think I told you that, like the
Yeah.
concrete with the rust, with the rebar, like all of these things I started, especially working in the real estate office, was actually a great
Intro.
introduction. I don't know if I mentioned that
Yeah.
before. So kind of, and that was a small business too. I mean, we use the definition of small business. I mean, my business is a micro business. I'm a one person business. And small businesses can be sometimes up to 100 more people, but we don't have a lot. We have truly small businesses here. The schools are smaller. Everything's smaller,
Do you,
but.
yeah. Do you do so? Speaking of small, do you
Yeah.
find that there's more smaller ceremonies held down
Yes.
here, or do you do a lot of grander, larger ones?
Great question. There are, larger weddings are held here because I see some of the other vendors. I see them posting larger weddings. Uh, but there aren't as many of those weddings, to be sure, and I don't get as many of those because I think that in some of the larger weddings they do tend to go. They might have their ceremony celebrated either at one of the local houses of worship where they actually get married in the house of worship, or they may choose to have it in a ballroom, but have their rabbi or pastor or priest or a member of their family marry them. So I have not done many weddings over 100 people. The average size wedding, I forget today's wedding, but they tend to run 25 to 75 is kind of an average in there. And then I do probably 30 to 40% of my business is elopements. And that word, always used to conjure up, two people, like a shotgun wedding, two people fleeing in the night to go get married in, Maryland or something. I think Maryland used to be the place where, like, you didn't need a license or something, whatever, in the movies. But yeah, technically an elopement does indicate that it's just the couple, or maybe the couple with a handful of guests. So that is very, very common. Some of the venues do put a package together for those couples, and maybe they might have a few guests, and they'll get them a little cake. They'll do a bouquet and a boutonniere, and clear an area on the beach and reserve an area, and then sometimes they call me. The couple will find me through the venue. I'll find the photographer. So sometimes they're little basic packages that the venues do. Sometimes the couples kind of put them together themselves. So very often, again, it's a simple elopement. But when I show up, if it's a bride and a groom, because I do same-sex weddings, so I do like to say couple. Yeah. But if it is indeed a bride and a groom, or two brides or two grooms, they are dressed formally, like in a suit and a gown or whatever. And so they have all the elements of a big wedding, as I like to say, shrunk down. And then, we'll make them reservations at a lovely restaurant, or they'll dine at the hotel, and they'll have all the pieces. And it's funny, I did a wedding such as this once, and then the couple, we had a photographer, and the couple was going out to one of our really nice Italian restaurants in Key Largo, and I heard the bride saying, "Well, we're gonna go back to the bungalow now, and have some private time, and I want to change." And I walked over to her and I said, "Don't change, stay in your wedding dress because you'll get comped." I said, "At least," she goes, "Really?" I go, "Yeah, I mean, unless you really, if you have like another dress." She laughed, and I said, "No, seriously, because everybody loves a wedding. Yeah. Everybody wants it. And when we do those weddings, if there's people on the beach or on the pier or wherever we're doing it, everybody, erupts into applause. If I need to politely ask someone to move for a picture so that they're not in the way, people never object because they see. But then you could also, I mean, I've done so many weddings where they're wearing shorts and t-shirts. Right? Yeah. And I'll marry them at 10 in the morning, and then they go on their boat and go fishing.
Nice.
So the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Yes. the whole spectrum.
What would you say is your most unique ceremony that you've performed?
Well, I loved the opportunity that I had to do a wedding out at Fort Jefferson, right, Tortugas off of Key West. The couple was from Texas, and they were getting that. There happened to be two men, and it was just the two of them with their mothers, and I think one of their grandmothers. And to get to, excuse me for like playing with my hair here, everyone. Uh, to get to that island, you there's either a seaplane or a like a ferry boat that you can take on a schedule.
70 miles, I
Yeah.
believe.
Is it that long?
I know
Okay.
the boat took
took
about
what?
2.5 hours.
Okay, and the plane ride was
Yeah.
fairly long too. And what they do is this plane. So they had booked the plane. There were a few other people, on board the plane, and I had the rare treat. So they bought me my ticket on the plane, and it's not cheap. I got to sit up front with the pilot.
Oh, cool.
And super cool. And we all wore headsets, and he did in sort of an educational
nice.
talk, because when you're flying over this water, I learned that is part of the national seashore. So that is protected waters there. And he pointed out like the tops of masts of boats that had sunk. And I think this was 6-7 years ago, but I think there was the stories behind. And then we were flying so low, he pointed out, because he knows what to look for. And if he spotted some turtles, he made sure that we could see the turtles. So it was this wonderful educational, entertaining thing. Plus, I'm with, so the two grooms were just in their shorts and stuff like that, but they had these garment bags. And little did I know that when we got to the fort, they had picked out a spot, because there's areas where, you can kind of climb in and walk around, sort of self-guided, and where like the bricks and the windows and doorways have sort of crumbled. And they had found one spot with their photographer where we stood to do the wedding. And we did that. It was on August 1st. And these guys put on full tuxedos. Oh my God, August 1st in the Keys. So, and the moms had dresses. They gave me a corsage. So I was treated like I was a member of the family. I'm going to start crying here.
Aww.
And we did the ceremony, but unbeknownst to me, they then said they were going to the other side of the island to go snorkeling. So here's the real kicker for the story. And I was like, okay, well, there's no reason for me to kind of follow them. The photographer went with them, and I went into inside the fort to the gift shop bookstore, and there was a delightful woman that worked there from South Carolina. She had a beautiful Southern accent, and chit-chatting, staying in the air conditioning, got a bottle of water, bought a beautiful cocktail table book, all about the history, and learned a lot of things from her. And then I came out to rejoin the wedding party, and we were, kind of sitting in the shade waiting for the plane to come back. And come to find out that what they did, not only did they go snorkeling, but both grooms changed into yellow Speedos, put on lipstick and little veils, and just got really campy, just camped themselves up.
That's great.
Went in Key West.
Right.
And went snorkeling, and I did, get to see some of the pictures that were taken in the viewfinder of the photographer's camera, and then eventually, the photographers are always very good about sharing and tagging, so
nice.
I got to see the pictures. So that was pretty cool, and just to learn that and have that experience of being on that seaplane. And I also found out that there's a small amount of people that sleep over there, like park employees that do stay overnight, and then a small amount of campers that are allowed to camp overnight. So that seaplane is actually a supply plane. Like he was bringing like provisions over. So again, kind of brought you close to the, close to the water, and that feeling of really being away from civilization.
You were definitely.
So that was pretty unique. Uh-oh, did you lose your hat? It's picking up, isn't it? Or
we're gonna go without the hat now.
No, you'll be blowing around like me.
Why not? Let's just let the hair down.
I could just turn like this and talk to you like this, and then my hair would be. We love these chairs. I mean, how cool is this? How cool is this? So I would say that was fairly unique. I've had the opportunity to kind of do little quotes, and not really a lot of theme weddings, like some Disney quotes, and people do themes in their weddings. But here in South Florida, people do tend to kind of keep their ceremonies fairly simple. I don't get to do a lot of kind of themey weddings. but I would definitely be open. I tell everybody that I'm open. I did have a fun thing the other day. Um, we used to do that traditionally in wedding ceremonies. There was always, does anyone object here? Speak now, forever hold your peace. And in the movies, I always envision like a pregnant woman running down the aisle, or a father again with a shotgun or something. This wedding can't take place or something. Uh, but in modern days, we don't do that anymore. But occasionally, a couple will ask me to do that to make it funny. And this couple that I just married last week, their first date, they actually like met somewhere for a bite to eat, and then actually went to a gun range their first date, and shot at targets and stuff like that. And she wanted me to like kind of make that into a joke. And so with the objection, we kind of worked that whole, oh God, you better not object, because where they went on their first date, they both know how to shoot guns. And it was like a whole like fun. So I get to do like those kinds of things, or also a unity ceremony, which is, some examples would be, the blending of the wine, blending of the sand. I've had some fairly unique ones that I got to put together, such as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, painting, a couple that had a blended family. They had a bunch of kids. So they had a big, you would like this, they had a big canvas on an easel, and they had like squirt bottles of paint. It got a little messy, a little hectic. They had like 5 kids, and they were all steps, all different ages. And so I just stepped to the side, and there was a little reading, but anything that symbolizes two becoming one, or a family blending, uh, is considered a unity ceremony. So that always makes it. I've gotten to do a few. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. I've gotten to do a few, or where they'll pass the wedding bands around so the couples can hold them in their hands. It's called a ring warming. So these are all the things that I offer to my couples, and sort of tying it up with a red bow, talking about how you put it so eloquently at the beginning about how I get to be a part of people's stories and their stories. Uh, and that is one of the first questions I do ask when I meet my couples is, what made you choose the keys?
Such a
And
great
then I
question.
sit back and I listen.
Yeah.
And very often it's, well, my grandpa had a house. We used to come down here when we were kids. My parents have a house. Or if they live elsewhere in Florida, like West Palm Beach or something, they'll tow their boats down here on the weekend, and big, fishing location. Um, or they came here on vacation, got engaged. The couple that I am marrying tonight, I believe they got engaged here, or they got engaged in the Keys. So it was a no-brainer for them to come back and do the wedding. And if they do it the weather hasn't gotten too cold up north yet, but this couple is from the Pennsylvania area, so certainly we are warmer than pretty much anywhere north of Miami at this point. And I can oftentimes kind of make that into a little joke and say, well, I know that everyone traveled to the Keys because they love you and they wanted to see you get married, but also, coming here from northern Pennsylvania in January or whatever, they didn't need a lot of convincing. And so my couples, almost all of them are fine with humor, balanced humor. So I try to go for their vibe, respectful, honoring the sanctity of marriage, and especially if it is a prayerful marriage, or also if we may be memorializing someone. I've sometimes memorialized people's pets. People really talk about their pets and bring their pets into their weddings. And again, with children. So there's a lot of different elements that we go through together that can make that ceremony extremely personal. Yet one of the most common things I hear from my couples during that consultation is, we'd like to keep it short and sweet, Kat. Nobody wants a long, drawn out wedding. If they did, they wouldn't be coming to an officiant like me to a place like this. Nothing wrong with a spiritual wedding in a house of worship. That's different. But for these beach weddings here, we never block more than 30 minutes, and we never use that up. So lots of freedom. I do a lot of quotes about sunrise and sunset, and I love to bring in quotes, or invite them to bring in quotes, about the natural beauty and how that ties in with love. That's why the sand ceremonies are so common.
Yeah.
Because, you spill the sand, who cares? It's on the beach. And we always put a layer of sand in from the beach, or what passes for sand here in the Keys. That's another thing. People want to stand in a big, fluffy sugar sand beach here. And that is one of the things that I have to tell people. We don't have a lot of beaches, particularly not public beaches. So the resorts will create beaches and literally
Bring
truck
in
in the
sand.
soft
Yeah.
sand. When I see the ladies taking off their shoes at the end of the night, if they haven't rented a dance floor, or the men, I'm like, be prepared for a pedicure, because you're going to get an automatic
Yes.
exfoliating of your feet when you take your shoes off. And speaking of bare feet, again, if I see that the couple is barefoot, I get very excited, because I'm like, if they're barefoot, that means that I now have permission to take
All
my shoes off.
right.
Not that I'm walking around in 6-inch pumps, but sometimes the guests are, and those come off real fast once the dancing starts. So yeah, so I have had, those some of the ceremonies that stand out in my mind. That one on the in the fort was definitely
Oh, I'm sure that just sounds.
and of course the sandbar one was
Yeah,
different too.
yeah. We're unique here. Why not have a unique wedding in a unique place, right?
Hey,
it's a place to do it.
Keep it. I mean, I keep thinking, Hog Heaven, that one of the places that stays open late. I don't know if they still have that. Instead of riding the bull, they had to ride the hog. They used to have a mechanical hog there. Like, no one's ever asked me to do a wedding there, but it is kind of cool.
Yeah,
kind of a cool
it's
place.
A
They have a dance
place,
floor, and I think that's an after party. But I'm actually kind of surprised that I've never been invited to do a wedding there. Maybe they don't do them there, but I don't think there's a single place. Like we said, everybody gets involved in weddings here.
Yeah.
I know of a few of the smaller. There's a couple of smaller inns where I know I have talked to the managers, and they won't. So if a couple is staying there and they call me up and they just want me to come in and officiate, I always tell them, please speak to the manager. If it's just the two of you, like we have some smaller inns that sort of cater to divers and stuff like that, and the couple may be coming down to dive. And what's interesting too is now it's NASCAR season in Homestead, and a lot of people come to the Keys. They stay in the Keys and they go back and forth, or they stay in Homestead because if they can't get a hotel room in Key Largo,
they'll travel here for.
So we've got that. We've talked about this too. That little rush hour on the 18-mile stretch. So a lot to do. So Homestead's almost sort of like an extension of the Keys, because we do have several beautiful, state parks and national parks up there in Biscayne Bay.
Yes.
So, but anyway, so I do always tell them, there's some inns that even just for two people, because what happens is, if it's sunset and then if they have other guests, they want to be mindful. So my first question is, after they tell me, what they're doing and whether they've booked a location, is to, go through the venue, or then I get to recommend restaurants, and I get to recommend where to go to get your hair done, or where to buy this, and also another thing I love is if they are having guests, the guests shop, the guests eat, and all that sales tax and all of that comes into our economy here. So, weddings are just happy all around. Of course, they're first for love and for family, and then secondarily,
they scatter joy
economy. Yes,
on everyone.
Yes.
Whether they're at the ceremony or not, the joy gets spread around.
And they're so happy, and it kind of follows them, and so if there is a little line or a little traffic or a little wait, look, I say, but look what's waiting for me. It's like a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Worth the wait.
I'm not going to some lousy office job or something, or doctor's appointment or something. I'm coming down to sit here and record a podcast, and then go marry and celebrate with a beautiful couple and their families from Pennsylvania, who have put that T word, trust.
Yeah. Yes.
And also a realtor, like these people completely and totally put their trust in us, and that's not lost on us. You know,
Yeah.
that's the one thing that a small business really can deliver, I think, because there's no layers between us and the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have to engender that trust in even before I speak to them, in my social media, in the tone of my posts,
Yes.
in the tone of my blogs, in the nature of the photos, and certainly in responding to the wonderful reviews that people send.
Yes,
Um,
you are on your website. You are the couple's choice on Wedding Wire every single year, and you've got so many beautiful reviews.
Thank you.
And so I want to know, like, what do you feel makes you stand out um, against the other officiants and couples coming to you? Because I know you are so warm and you're more than just their officiant. You really, you really make it. You're really good with your words, but you just really make it so personal for them. And like you said, you go above and beyond too. I mean, you don't have to recommend all these other, providers, but you do because you want them to really enjoy their day, not just in that moment where you're marrying them, but their whole time they're here. So
Thanks, MJ.
yeah,
Appreciate that.
yeah.
I
So
appreciate that.
that's just I know one thing that helps you stand out. But what would you say really
Well,
makes you
yeah, I
stand
mean,
out?
you hit on some great points there, and humbly, I acknowledge that. I think the humor that I bring, again, with balance. I bring myself to both to the process and to the actual wedding. Whenever possible, if it's feasible, I meet the couple. And again, with this evening's couple, they happen to have booked me in advance of when they came down for. They'll very often come down for their tasting and a makeup and hair trial, and I was able to meet them near Miami Airport where they flew in because I wasn't in the Keys that day. So we sat in like a IHOP or a Panera or something for like 2 hours, and we just talked. And then the conversation just kind of flecked in different directions. And again, with the pets, I always tell them I must see a picture of your fur babies, or I will not sign your marriage license. And if we're doing a Zoom, and the dog or the cat walks past, or the kids come in, or I hear the kids and they're apologizing, I'm like, don't apologize. You're in your home. Uh, and so, and every now and then I might have to pop up and, I apologize. But I think that I make myself available in this line of work. You must be flexible because it's not business to business. So very often those Zoom calls or phone calls need to be done on the weekend, need to be done in the evening, or possibly on a holiday. Particularly, sometimes I've married so many couples. It's so common for two first responders uh, or healers. I call them. So I've married. I can't tell you how many couples I married where one is a nurse or a physician or a healer of some kind, and the other might be an EMT or police officer or military or retired military, and crazy hours, shift work, shift work. And so I do my best to make myself available. Sometimes it does wind up being only the bride or groom, but I always try to get both of them to work around their schedule. So I think that's one thing that I put into that flexibility, that adaptability. Day of the wedding, if something changes, no sweat. As long as you communicate it with me, I've been doing this long enough. I can ad lib. Like today, I'm probably going to have 14 rubber bands and binder clips on my ceremony. But I know that, I can adapt to that, and they shouldn't be distracted. They shouldn't have to worry about if we're having trouble with them, if the microphone gives out or it's a little breezy or it starts to rain. I have one of my sayings is show up and be in love. Kat will take care of the rest, at least for the ceremony portion. So, and if there's a little glitch, you just go right over it. I'm not going to draw attention to it. So I think that adaptability and flexibility, and again, go with the flow to use your term, both in the planning and in the execution. Sometimes I go to leave and they'll say, you're leaving already? Come, join us for dinner. And it's not always feasible. And I also, it's very kind of them, but they don't always have to, have me stay. But I try to meet the parents and I try to get to know a little bit about them. But I always say, look, only share with me what you're comfortable with, and then it's. But they want me to know. They want me to have the backstory.
Yeah.
And they also will trust me. I tell them they'll be spontaneity, but don't worry, I don't go off the charts that much. So, there might be a little humor. I might bring a little something something in based on their energy, because that's where Scatter Joy came from. My third wedding, I saw rose petals on the beach, and Scatter Joy happened to be a quote that I loved from Ralph Waldo Emerson from years ago. I had it on a poster in my home long before I knew that I was going to be a wedding officiant. And I was, you need a tagline or a mission statement for your wedding. That kind of cutting into the story a little bit here. And I said, Scatter Joy, rose petals. And then that sort of morphed into, what at the bottom of it, what do I do? And I can describe my job in those two words. I scatter joy, their joy. Okay. I don't pretend to. So it's not the cat show, but I bring cat in. And I've had this discussion with other officiants. Some officiants don't agree that you should sort of introduce yourself at the top of the wedding. I do. Again, I don't go, oh, hi, my name's Kat and I'm from New York. And no, it's hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Kat. I'm so happy to be here. Boom. Yeah. It's that connection. So joy is my favorite word. Connection is my second favorite word. And faith is my third favorite word. I use them as much as possible. Faith/hope to tied for third. So that all has to do with it, the creativity. Like I encourage people to be different, to be creative. I give them readings and quotes, and I tell them, whatever you want, I'll put it in there. Whatever you want me to do, I'll put it in there. So other people might want to keep it more same, not me. But I also don't try and reinvent the wheel if they don't want me to reinvent the wheel. Like if somebody comes to you for a 2-2 condo, because I know realtors sometimes will show people things, but you're not going to suddenly start showing them 5-bedroom houses. Right. You might show them 1 or 2 places that might be a little outside their, what they requested. But basically, you're going to bring to them what they asked for.
Yeah.
So you're listening. So I know no one would ever refute the fact that I'm very talkative, but I do listen to them and what they want, because it is not the cat show. It is the client show. I work for the couple. If somebody else comes up to me with a question or a request right before the wedding, and it's something that I'm not sure the couple would like or whatever, I always bride and groom or the planner if there's a planner. But they are the people that are putting their trust in me. And even though some brides and grooms are so nervous during the ceremony that they might not always remember, I know in my heart that I told them I would do X, Y, and Z, that I will step out for the kiss, and I will step out for the rings, and I will say this and do that. And you don't build a successful business by going back on your word.
Yep.
So that's some of what I think sets me apart. Yeah. Not what I think, what I know sets me apart.
Yeah. Are you doing okay on time? I know you gotta.
We're still good. We can keep rolling. Yeah, awesome. I'm loving this.
Like...
yeah, well, that's and speaking of flexibility, it was great. That like when we talked about where to record, I said, well, I'm at, I'm at this venue anyway, so this way I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a beautiful spot too.
It's chill.
Yeah, and like when I found these chairs, I was like, perfect.
This is so. I mean, talk about keys. I don't know what they're made from, but if they were made locally or not. But that's not. And birds. Like there's been pelicans flying overhead, and every now and then we'll see an osprey at a wedding, and I love if I see an osprey or an osprey nest because they mate. Like they hang out together, the male, female. I don't know if they mate for life, but they, and I always feel that that's, kind of brings, so anything, again, from the natural environment. Here's a cool thing, there's one venue where we work a lot, like there's a big, of course, our beautiful protected mangroves and how much life they harbor and how important they are to the ecosystem here. And one of these venues, the wedding is sort of out on a dock, and they have one of those big driftwood arches. But when I'm facing into the shore, these mangroves that are to the right, uh, almost every time we're getting ready to do a wedding, the white ibises, or however you're supposed to say that, ibis, are all sort of perched all over this because it's a big, high group of mangroves. And I'll do, wedding crashers. But from my perspective, I look and the white, which is, symbolic in this culture of weddings, and just to see all that, and if they're still there during the wedding, or if they make a noise, that would be an example of the spontaneity. I might say, oh my God, Bob, Mary, you got wedding crashers. So, and it's a perfect way again to tie in, because that's what they love about it. This is unstructured structure, if you will.
Yes.
We have to have a timeline. We have to deliver what we're charging the people for, and we have to stay within a framework, and obey all the local rules and ordinances and things. But beyond that, we have a lot more latitude here to that freeness. And again, I say this humbly, when I do get to chit chat with the guests after the wedding, half the time they think, how long have you known the couple? Oh, do you know them from where they live? Like, how did you meet them? And to me, that's a great form of praise.
Yes.
And another thing is, like, when the grandmother, I always say, when grandma comes up,
grandma
comes up to me, or grandpa comes up to me and takes me by the hand and looks in my eyes. Because frankly, I'm at that age right now where certain of the younger couples I could be their grandmother, but so I relate to that. But I also understand that an older generation has come more to this. Might be the first of this type wedding that they've ever attended. Something sort of non-denominational on the beach by a person such as myself, who's not known to them and not part of a religious order. And I think sometimes they tell me, like, we didn't know what to expect, Kat, but when you spoke, it was so beautiful. And and if there was a prayer, they always say they like, if there's a prayer, something, or a blessing. So again, that's you're you're giving people what they want, but you're also guiding them. Another thing they say a lot is, well, Kat, can you kind of tell us what goes on? Like, sometimes I kind of have to do that even before they book me. And they'll say, well, because we've never been married before, so we don't know. And I don't laugh, but I do say, well, of course you don't know. How would you know? You know, I wouldn't know how to hook up a toilet. I've never done it, or any number of other things. I don't know how to rebuild an engine. So I do. It's putting people at ease and not making them feel like there's something wrong. Like, how would they know what it's like to write a custom ceremony? And like you said, what we can advise them on. Like, I'll start telling them about, you wear sunscreen and, stay hydrated. You watch and you listen to what the rest of the team is doing, and you absorb that, because we all make each other look. This was a point that I wanted to remember to bring up. So even though we all have our individual businesses, we are working for the couple, but the planner executes everything and tells us, when to arrive, where to be, what to do, da, da, da. This is what the couple wants, and with the DJ, the playlist, and you have to stop playing at 11 o'clock, all those things. And with me, it's, they might come up to me and say, Kat, the couple changed something at the last minute, and again, flexibility. I keep sticky notes and a pen in my binder in case somebody changes something at the last minute, and it has happened. One time only, somebody had given me their vows on a little folded up piece of paper, and it was like a backyard wedding. It was a small wedding. We were right at the water's edge, like where we are now, and a strong wind came, and I had not secured it enough in the book, and it blew into the water. You take your hits too when you do. I'm not perfect, far from it, and so you learn from that. My third wedding, I made a mistake and never invited the guests to sit back down. Never made that mistake again. Made a different mistake, or you learn, what the microphone, what to wear, what to do. Um, but if you're not flexible and you're not open to change, and you don't learn, and again, I'm only as good as my last wedding. Okay, I don't have a lock on it. If I started showing up late for things or unprepared, or started not returning people's phone calls or people's emails, guess what? I'm not going to get referred anymore. So you have, no matter how well known or how well respected you are, you also have to work that much harder to keep that reputation. And of course, that goes for any business. But, my business is Ceremonies by Kat. My name's in there. And when I started subcontracting to people and inviting other people to do weddings under my company name, that was hard. Because I wouldn't be there with them when they do the wedding. I would prep them. I chose experienced, mature, professional people, but still, how did I know that they were going to be able to roll with the punches like I do at a wedding? I could, give them my checklist, my standards, and I can know that they had experience. Fortunately, it has worked out beautifully. There's really been very few times that either I or somebody working under my name, under my brand, has had an issue beyond the little things. And yes, I could be accused of overthinking, but if overthinking avoids discomfort, then so be it.
Like you
and
said,
that's what I have to do.
you're taking any worry or stress away from the couple. Like you have to absorb that so
Yes.
they cannot, so that energy is not felt,
Exactly.
And sometimes that's where overthinking comes in, you're like, okay, I will be the overthinker,
Yeah, like
the
you
one
show
home.
up and you think you forgot something. Like, why is the bride standing on that side? Was I supposed to, But they will often switch the side because of the hair. But yeah, and if getting there 2 hours early because I know there's a festival going on. I mean, that's another thing. Like, I'll tell the couples about that. I'll say, don't let your friends and family leave the hotel 2 hours before the wedding because there's a big festival going on at Founders Park, and they're not going to get back in time for your wedding.
Yeah, because I'm sure most of your couples are not from here.
Nope.
They've only vacationed here, so they don't know that those little ins and outs that people that are here all the time know. Like, so that's another great thing that you can provide them with, that little insight. And
exactly.
Like you said, you're guiding them. You're providing what they want, but you're also guiding them with your local knowledge. And so, with most of the couples probably being from out of state or out of
the area, yeah.
How does one work with you from calling you to set up their date with you to the ceremony? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, good question. So it depends a little bit on how they find me. If it was, again, a referral from the venue or the planner, or sometimes it's my name is on the venue list, but then also, their planner says call Kat, and that's kind of humbling too, because I'll say, well, how did you find me? And they'll go, well, everybody recommended you. It's like, oh, okay, thank you. But so depending on how they find me, so sometimes if they've called me direct, some people still actually like call instead of texting or but of course I have a great messaging thing on my Facebook, on my Facebook, my Instagram, and my website. So I do get written inquiries, but sometimes people will make that initial contact by phone. And even if they do write me, to be perfectly honest with you, from a marketing point of view or from a getting business point of view, especially with what I do, following up with a phone call is really the most important. So, I've learned from sales professionals that when you get an inquiry, you're supposed to reply the same way you received it. But then I will try to. My follow up is usually done by phone, because if they pick up the phone or if they call me back, we can make that voice contact before they book me, and they can get an example of what my style and my vibe is. So that might not be as important for other service providers or other practitioners in other fields, But for me, that's why having video and eventually, having this linked to my YouTube. Um,
Yeah.
it, when I first started in business, it takes a while to accumulate video. And it's one of the most common questions I get asked. So on my website, you can just follow Kat on YouTube, and I the wonderful videographers that I work with, or sometimes it's homemade videos, are bits and pieces of them are on there, so people can hear my voice and see me. So so we do the email, and I respond, I answer their questions, I give them a quote, and then I will say, best next step is, when would you be available for a getting to know you call. Sometimes they book me before we do that call. Other times they book me as a result of that call. And then again, if we have the opportunity to do a meet and greet in person, if they're quasi local or if they're coming into town before the wedding, I always do my best to make myself available. And, or I'll say, well, I'm going to be in this area, where are you going to be? And let's see if we can knock out an hour where we can sit somewhere and talk, like this, or in a coffee shop or something. And then the Zoom. And then the Zoom too. And the Zoom is usually done like closer to when we're getting ready to actually write the ceremony, because now I've got all their information. Again, a little overthinking, but I ask all these questions so that there's no worries.
Yeah.
And of course, sometimes they'll ask the same question 2 or 3 times and they'll forget, how they told me, or forget, with the license and all that official stuff. I say it over and over. But then I say, this is the boring stuff. But again, I say, Kat makes the license go away. Once you apply for it, you give it to me, it's all good. I take care of it. And that's a lot of responsibility. That's a legal document. And sometimes they do get lost. Sometimes there are issues. And I have been told by other planners and wedding vendors that, maybe I shouldn't even say this, but whatever, and for penny and for pound, that they've worked with other officiants where they've actually had questions that the officiant couldn't answer about legalities and things like that. Or I have a document that I send the couples that explains how to go about getting a Florida license, all the rules and regulations, right from the clerk of court's office.
Yeah.
Again, trust,
Trust and knowledge on all aspects.
And I hear this from people time and time again. Thank you. We had no idea. We didn't know what to do.
Said, we don't know what's the step, and
I don't want them worrying about that paper.
Yeah, I know all that paper stuff.
I tell them, when you wake up tomorrow morning and you go to your brunch or whatever you're going to do, you're going out on a boat trip or something the day after your wedding, or you're hanging out by the pool. Don't suddenly call me and say, "Oh my God, Kat, we don't have the license. What did you?" You're going to forget that I told you that I take it and I make it go away. So I try to make it humorous so that they'll remember it. But I did used to get that text message. They'd be going off to breakfast and they'd send me, "Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God."
Like,
so I don't expect them to remember.
Yeah.
But again, that's something, you have to put yourself in the place. Like, it's almost like, what do they say with doctors, like bedside manner? Like if you're delivering bad news, you got to do it in a certain way, or you kind of have to try to empathize and put yourself in that position. And I know, this might sound sexist or old fashioned, but we use the expression bride brain or groom brain. You're packing, you're getting ready, you're doing 9 billion things. You're going to forget stuff. You're going to flake out on stuff, and it's fine.
Yeah,
it's perfectly fine. We just don't make people feel uncomfortable about it. But I do say to them, don't forget the license. I'm not condescending, but I can't tell you how many couples have left the license in their hotel room or in their car. So now I have to send a bridesmaid or a groomsman or somebody running after that and taking them away from the celebration. So you kind of just have to be a step ahead of everybody.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to put it.
And it's fun. And then at the end of the day, you have a good time. Like the DJs and the musicians that work weddings. We have a gal that does live painting.
Oh, yes, that's amazing.
Is that incredible?
Yeah, what a cool thing to have at a wedding.
And I've seen her painting me, because what she'll do is she'll do the outline. It's just the white. She had the white for the hair, and then she goes to the studio and she fills in all the detail later.
Okay.
But she was explaining to me recently at lunch that she also, some couples might make available that their guests can come and get like a little painting. In that case, she brings a second person with her, obviously. So even within that, or sometimes people actually get the paintings without the faces, just so that she can just get
Get
them at the arch or whatever they want
the
her to paint.
scene. Yeah, it's
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 so
more of the
cool.
overall scene
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
And we get cigar rollers at the
Ooh,
weddings. That's a
fun,
popular thing here in
fun.
South Florida.
I'm actually with my art business next weekend. A week from today, I'll be an artist at a wedding, and what their vision was is that they have these seashells that have been cut into hearts, and they're using them as the place cards for the table.
Yeah.
So like it'll have with a ribbon, it'll have like a little card that says the person's name and where they're seating. So they'll pick that up at the beginning, and then a fun activity for guests besides dancing. They wanted to have another activity in it for guests to mingle.
Yeah.
Is that they'll come over to my table and I can either paint on the shelf for them, or they can paint along with me and I can kind of guide them. And yeah, they could.
I love this. So welcome to the wedding
I
industry.
know.
You're gonna have
it's my first time doing it. They approached
You're gonna have to
me
get
and,
pictures and Instagram and
so
and,
I mean, I love that when people come and say, I have this idea. Can you do it? Can you?
Yes.
I'm like, yes, let's do it.
You
so,
see, and it's fun to get into something.
Yeah,
and it's local.
And then that way, every guest gets to go home with a little keepsake, and they'll be talking about, oh my gosh, so and so's wedding. They had.
I'm so excited.
Yeah,
that's next week.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay, so okay. I'm gonna see that, and I'm gonna love it. And I'm gonna share it, and I'm gonna, you're gonna be on that famous preferred vendor list of mine if I ever get finished with it. But yeah, I guess we should probably kind of wind down.
So let everybody know how they can continue following you, learn more about your business, work with you. Where can they do that?
Thank you very much. Again, my business name is Ceremonies by Kat. You can find me on Wedding Wire, on The Knot, which are the two biggest wedding pro wedding platforms where people go to find vendors and find venues. Wedding Wire and The Knot. My website is Ceremonies by Kat, Kat with a K, and also on Instagram, on Facebook. I'm in many Facebook groups like wedding and bridal groups. You'll probably see me in a lot of the threads on Facebook. And again, you can go directly to my YouTube page, Ceremonies by Kat, or you can get there through my website to see videos. And my reviews are all on my website. And what else? I mean, I'm preferred vendor at all the venues and work with all the planners here and many in, as I mentioned, throughout South Florida, Miami, Naples, West Palm Beach. I know we're focusing on the Keys, but just want to throw that out there that I work wherever and whenever. I'll put this out there too. My phone number is 305-942-0067. Almost forgot that.
And I'll make sure to put all your contact info, all your socials, and your website. That'll all be down in the show notes and the description of my YouTube video, so you can easily click on that there.
I appreciate that, and we speak Spanish. We have fully bilingual. I can work Spanish into my ceremonies, and as mentioned before, we are equal opportunity officiants. We marry everybody. If you're in love and you have the proper paperwork, but we actually do commitment ceremonies and vow renewals as well. So it's not always something where a license is involved. A lot of people come down to celebrate anniversaries, and I wanted to mention that vow renewal. They'll turn that into like a family reunion or something. So I can work all kinds of different things into those ceremonies too.
This has been such a beautiful conversation. I really enjoyed it.
I didn't want it to end. I know we go on forever and ever.
I'm glad this worked out and such a beautiful location. And
thank you.
Yeah, so just thank you so much again. I appreciate you.
I appreciate
taking your time,
and I wish you so much. I don't want to say luck because I just buona fortuna. I see nothing but good from your new endeavor, and I've been telling everybody about your podcast and all your initiatives. And I'm going to see you at the
yes,
your
the
coconut painting
nights.
workshop.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to that.
We're going to paint coconuts this week.
Yes.
So, if you could indulge me, I have a little something that I just wanted to share with everybody before we sign off. I happen to be doing, and forgive me for reading this, but I want to make sure that I read it right. It's actually a very famous prayer, Saint Teresa's prayer, and it's actually my favorite. And I use it in my personal life. I have it on my vision board and on my social media. But today's couple did invite me to close their ceremony out with this prayer, so I figured how appropriate that we could close this out with the concept of peace. I like to close all my ceremonies with just leaving with peace in our mind, and what a great way to start a marriage. So, St. Teresa's prayer: may today there be peace within. May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content knowing you are a child of God. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, to dance, to praise, to love. It is there for each and every one of us. Amen. So be it. Peace. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And I just want to say many blessings to you with an abundant season of love and celebration.
Thank you, MJ. I love you.
I love you.